Welcome back to the Nose Plays Age of Wonders 3. We are in part 2 of our first look at this game on the channel. Again, Age of Wonders 3 has been out for a couple of years now, and like I said, it's had a couple of decent DLC expansions, but it has been stagnant for a little while, and that is partially due to the fact that Triumph Studios is producing a brand new Age of Wonders game called Planetfall, which takes many of the concepts from this game and translates them into a more science fiction setting. So, um, just in recognition that that game will be coming out soon, in early 2019, I believe is the release date, I wanted to go ahead and, since I was in the middle of playing this again a little bit more in my own private time, just put a few videos out for the channel and see what people thought of it. So, if you have any feedback on this game after seeing a little bit of it, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. But for now, we are going to go ahead and continue the game we started. So last time we had started to secure some of the area around our capital city. We casted the Iron Grip spell, which increased the morale of our city significantly and gave us a significant boost to all of our resources as the result of a percent bonus for high morale. We also managed to clear some resources and abandon camp over here, and we are in the process of creating a vassal city, which we'll talk a little bit more about in this episode, with an elf city that we found just to the north of us. So, that being said, we got a lot of stuff to get going here. I need to consider regrouping my army after this turn is over and decide where I'm going to send them. This is a legendary dungeon. That's going to be a pretty hard fight. There are a couple of things over here we could fight that aren't too bad. Goblins are pretty easy to deal with, except for one little problem, and that is you can see there's a lot of poison damage on some of these units, and elves are particularly weak to poison effects. So that might not be something we want to take on right away. This over here, however, is definitely something we're going to want to get soon, but we're not in any pressing need. And there is a watchtower to the south of us I'd also like to claim. That will be a pretty good... Okay, Epic is, I think, a lower tier than Legendary. So we might see what's in this crypt. There's a tomb here. That means that we can enter this treasure site and potentially find some cool artifacts or treasure. However, it is an epic level dungeon, and so there's some pretty strong monsters in there potentially. Alright, let's go ahead and end the turn. I think I did everything I needed to do at the end of last game. And I can see some stuff over here. Let's just go ahead and move that direction. Okay. So this is another pretty difficult fight. Draken are just the one flamer. These ones can put out a firebomb, which is an AoE attack that's pretty powerful. Especially against anything that's weak to fire. This is an item rack. That means that there will be some items for heroes as a reward if we manage to complete that fight. I think what I'm going to do is send this guy around since he has the highest movement. Okay. Spring of Life. That produces better cavalry units. Stables of Vigor gives mounted units free movement, fast healing, and high morale. So, this could be a good city for cavalry units, potentially. We'll send him back down. He is just a scout. I don't think I want to go too far that direction just yet. and we're gonna go ahead and send this dwarf this direction as far as his little stubby legs can carry him. And our elves are going to come down this way as well. We need to consider clearing this tile, so that's what our next objective is going to be. We are pretty much at full health. One turn of rest will get the initiate up, and we can regroup with our hero. I don't think there's any need to move the hero at this point. I mean, I guess we could move down here and then move back for the fight. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and clear a little bit more of the map. Okay, it looks like... yeah, this is just going to be a dead end. We should be able to get back here because it was one move's worth of movement to get there, so we can get back no problem. And we'll group up over here and fight these guys once we do. Then we'll head down and try to get this watchtower. I think that's our next couple sets of moves. We got some units that have offered to join us for a small amount of gold. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And we'll just move this initiate into our capital city to defend it from any roaming bandits for now. This unit does have a weak but significant ranged attack. And so with walls, a lot of enemies will not be able to break through our walls without taking several hits from the initiate's ranged attack before they can get through and do any real damage to us. So this is probably not enough of a defense, but maybe with this pikeman, we'll have enough defenders that I'll feel comfortable not having to build any military units in the short term. We did complete our storehouse. So next we're going to go ahead and build the shrine. We can see that the storehouse looks like it shaved maybe another turn or two off of our turn timer before our city grows. So we're doing just fine in terms of growth. Let's take a look at... let's take a little bit closer look at the morale. So a city's morale is based on a number of factors. One of those factors is your base happiness and racial modifiers. We also have city modifiers, so we're getting a lot. We get 50 morale points for having our capital city in a city. We also have 300 for the Iron Grip and 143 for the liked terrain. Now every faction has a particular type of terrain that they like or prefer, and the more of it that you can put inside of their region, the higher you can raise their morale. Elves particularly like dense vegetation, and they also have terrain that they dislike, and having any of those terrain types inside your zone or your region will produce penalties to your morale. So disliking tropical and subterranean means that we're not going to be very happy in those cities if we were to take over any or build any in those locations. And blighted and volcanic are particularly distasteful to elves. They do not like to live in those areas, and if you have an elven city in an area with those types of terrain, the morale for the city will be very low, and it may cause them to rebel or produce less of all of your main resources. So, that being said, I don't think that there's any need to do any terrain terraforming. There are some ways to terraform areas inside of your domain and make them a little bit more habitable for the people of that particular race, but we don't have any real need to do that right now. An item has arrived, and so now we can equip this and give our warlord a little bit more offensive potency. And our first research has been completed. That means we can now look for a new research. I'm kind of tempted to go ahead and get the Grimbeaks. They're going to be pretty useful as scouts in the early game. They're not very useful military units in combat, but they make particularly decent scouts. So we may summon a few of those, but more importantly, by grabbing that technology, it will unlock a different unit type that we can research, one that may be more useful to us. I don't think that there's anything else we can get done this turn, so away we go. Alright, and just as I pointed out at the end of last video, the outpost has a quest available for us. So basically what will usually happen is if you have high enough diplomacy with this particular independent, they'll offer to join you for a fee, or they'll give you a quest, and if you complete the quest, the reward will often be that they will become your vassal. So we're going to go ahead and take on this quest in the Terror at the mine. So they have a mine inside or near their region that has monsters at it, and this is considered a very easy quest. We have a limited number of turns to finish this quest, 10 turns, but if we complete the quest in 10 turns or less, we will get a vassal proposal and a High Elf Union Guard, or we could substitute that for 91 gold. We're going to go ahead and accept this quest. We should have plenty of time to finish what we want to do down here and then head back that way. So let's first of all, let's see, I can get her to there. And we will use the hero to engage in this, preserving the rest of our unit's movement so that we can all move a little bit more consistently. Dwarves again, so we know the Axeman is not that terrifying. However, we do see a Dwarven crossbowman and a prospector, which is an irregular dwarf unit. We'll have to look at the details of that unit once we get into the fight here and see if there's anything that I need to be aware of. Most irregular units have a weak ranged attack and a weak melee attack. They're kind of a flexible unit with some special abilities that make them reasonably effective. They also tend to upgrade into much more powerful units if you can keep them alive long enough. Perfect example of that. I wanted to show this to you guys before, but a High Elf Initiate, once it reaches max rank, will actually upgrade into a Storm Sister unit. However, it's not showing that here. So, here we go. So it's under this ability, Evolve. When a unit reaches gold medal rank, it evolves into a High Elf Storm Sister. So at the elite level, it will actually upgrade into a Storm Sister, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure what level of Storm Sister it upgrades to. If it upgrades to a Gold Storm Sister, that kind of sounds like what it will do, but maybe not. Maybe you'll start over again and have to level up from there. I'm not certain on that. But that's just one way to make these units more palatable. These really low-level units are pretty garbage in the late game, but if you do happen to have a bunch of them in the early game that survive, they become much more reasonable fighting units. Okay, so let's take a look at our enemies. So the crossbow, pretty solid damage from a crossbow. Crossbows can only fire once per turn instead of 3 times like some of the other weapons, but they do a much higher damage on that one shot than a lot of other units will. These guys are armored, as all dwarves I believe are. But nothing else really particularly important about them. Blight protection, I guess, is worthy of note. All dwarves have blight protection. We've already know a little bit about these guys. We've fought them before, so I don't think there's any reason to spend too much time looking at them. But this unit I have not seen yet, so it looks like they can throw stones, and they have a melee attack. What does this dwarf unit do? Anything else? No. Nothing particularly exceptional. Just a weak ranged attack and a weak melee attack. The fact that they do have ranged attacks will affect us a little bit, but not a ton. So we want to force these guys to come forward. This is kind of weird terrain for us to fight in front of. So what I'm thinking of doing is moving my entire army over this direction and then coming at them from this side. So I think that is definitely what we're going to do. We're just going to move everybody this way. And we'll move him as far this way as we can. We'll see what these dwarves do. All right. So they can get to these spaces here, but we have a little bit more access to get in here and attack them. So if they move to there, they can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we don't have to move up very far for them to be able to engage us. We could move behind some cover, which will protect us a little bit from their ranged attacks. So let's go ahead and do that for now. Her right here. She is just out of range. However, I do have some magic spells. This is not very effective against dwarves because of their blight resistance. This would be okay to cast on somebody, but I don't have any reason to do it just yet. It's more of a spell that you would want to cast if, say, you were trying to keep a unit from dying that had already been injured. Alright. Unfortunately, they're going to get the first draw on us, but I'm not too worried about it. Since we are in guard mode, they're not going to be able to do a lot of damage, and they've opened themselves up pretty fantastically for a charge attack. So this unit's going to go ahead and charge the first set of dwarves in the back here, this crossbowman. before we do that, let's see, we could do 18 to 26 damage. So we need to get a little bit of damage on this unit before alright, so this unit I really don't want here. I want to move it back. If I move it back, it's no longer going to be in range to shoot this guy, but that's probably okay. Line of sight penalties really killing us here. What if we move here? Okay, now we no longer have a line of sight penalty, so we can actually do some reasonable damage. We're still taking a ranged penalty, but that's okay. We got a critical, so we did pretty good damage there. Alright, so I want to move this unit one space for now. That way I can get this guy here, and then we can move him into a better position. Uh, 4 to 6 lightning damage, not great, but enough to take him down a little bit lower. Now our Warlord could charge in here and do 13 to 19 damage and almost certainly kill this unit in one strike. If we do get lucky and kill it in one strike, we won't even take any retaliation damage. The other thing we could do is charge this unit, but we don't have enough damage on it to kill it. So I think it's probably best if we just charge this one. And we got lucky, got the kill. Now unfortunately that means that our Warlord is no longer guarded. So to kind of help out with that, what we're going to do is move this unit up and put it into guard stance. I'm going to keep it facing this direction so that this unit can't just move over here and shoot a flank attack. That way we're still facing them no matter which direction we get attacked from. So that's good. And then last but not least, our hero. We can move a little bit closer, and we're not going to be able to get very much damage with our attack, but we should be able to set up a kill on this unit in the next turn. Alright, I feel pretty good about our positioning. So they still got a flank attack on us, which is fine. Our hero ended up falling. That's not so fine. I did not see that coming. And that's really unfortunate that our hero's already dead. Well, I need to see if this unit, yeah, this unit doesn't have a charge attack, so I can move here, or I can move 1, 2, 3 and attack him from that position. If you move at least 3 spaces, you get a charge bonus for your attack. We're just gonna attack these guys with all of our ranged units for now. And that's going to allow these units to basically murder these archers. With minimal damage. That is really unfortunate to lose our hero this early. The only thing worse than losing our hero this early would be losing a hero that had already leveled up a couple times. This one had not leveled up yet, so it's a loss, but it's not the biggest loss in the world. I thought I had covered my flank a little better than I ended up doing that time. We can pick up these items for now. We can then use the crossbow or the blowpipe in combat in the future. And we now have the spear. So a little bit more melee damage if we do happen to get into a melee attack situation. That being said, everybody does need to group up and move back up this way to complete that quest. So that is exactly what we're going to do. The fastest way over here looks to be this way. And we're out of movement points. We do have this dwarf here. And so we'll go ahead and group him up with this army as well. And that gives us a full stack. Again, we mitigated damage to a couple of different sources, minus obviously the hero that got picked on. And so these guys will all be near full health or at full health by the time we take on this quest. Real important that you don't let a single unit take all of the damage in a combat conflict, because it does take a long time for them to heal out of that damage. We also have our Unicorn Rider, and I want to be careful not to aggro this unit because sometimes it will move, although this one I don't think will. This one I think is not going to move off of that spot. Whoops. I'm trying to move around their city. Okay, we're just going to go through there. And I'm going to stop here for just a second so I can see what we're dealing with. So it looks like we have a Dread Spider Baby, which is an interesting little animal. It does have Web Touch and melee strike with blight damage, so that's dangerous to our elves. And then all of these have blight damage as well. That's going to be significant in that blight damage is our weakness, so we got to be really careful in that fight. Having a dwarf in the front line could potentially be really helpful in this engagement, so I'm kind of glad we have one. And this is where having a mix of units can be really helpful in this game, because if you happen to come across a group that just happens to be your weakness, it can be real rough going for you. We may also use a fair number of spells to try to enhance our ability to get through this fight. So now I have a couple of options. This unit can't quite make it there in one turn. We might actually bring our cavalry with us for this fight. So we won't be able to put them in this stack, but we could go ahead and get them in the fight with us. We'll use this unit to engage the fight. This is going to be a difficult one. Let's see what they end up doing. Alright, they're just going to move up. Alright, let's take a look at these kobolds. They have a very dangerous melee strike with Blight. No ranged attack, 60% Blight protection. So again, our spells are going to be fairly ineffective against them. The spider, however, does have Blight protection, can also evolve into a Dread Spider Queen, so that's pretty cool. If you do get one of these, you can level it up to a more powerful unit. Webbing basically just prevents units from taking any action, so basically it works like a stun. For 2 turns. That's pretty powerful. Alright, so movement of 4. This unit's in range to charge my hero currently. I really don't want that to happen. What I'd really like to see happen is I would like to see these units kind of crash on my dwarf. So we're going to move him right up front. And put him into guard. We're also going to move my elf warriors up here, but I want to leave some gaps here and allow these guys to kind of move into this space. And I'll tease out why here in a moment. Basically, I want to create kind of a death channel here. If these guys choose to walk through these channels, they're going to get attacked by all of my units. And my hero is actually going to cast a spell. I'm going to cast Moving Target on my dwarf, giving him an incredibly high defense and hopefully allowing him to survive the initial wave of attacks. She can attack from there. Let's see if... Yes, can attack from there. Okay, so everybody has a target now. We're going to focus all of our fire on this first unit coming in. Nice crit shot. And we've already cast a spell with our hero, so she won't be able to attack. But again, if a unit comes and attacks this dwarf, that's fine. If they try to walk past the dwarf is going to get chances to strike at them. And if they try to move past these elves in order to get to my weaker units in the back, the same thing's going to happen. Now they could try to flank us around this direction, but that's going to take longer for them to move, and we'll have a little time to react to that. Let's see if my defensive formation pays off. Alright, he resisted the web touch. Alright, so far so good, and we do have one unit attempting to flank. So my dwarves are at about half health now. We got to be real careful with them, but they did their job. They absorbed all of the attacks from these, and you can see they dished out way more damage than they took. We also have these healthy elf units that can get in here and help out now. And we definitely want to try to deal with this unit. So if we move this unit here, I'm going to get 3 strikes on this with max damage. That might be enough to kill them. Not quite enough to kill them, but definitely enough for this unit to finish them off. So far so good. Alright, my hero can go ahead and blast this unit 2 times. We could charge in there, or we could just shoot them. That's going to be more than enough damage to kill that unit. We could also kill this one instead, but I think this is the one I want to get rid of. Then I'm going to bring this guy around and attack here. This unit I can't move because it used up all of its actions in those guard attacks. So when you guard, if you use up your attacks, it actually consumes them for the next turn. That's an important distinction to remember. Unfortunately, we're currently in a flanked position. Oh, not quite. This is not a flank position. These 3 tiles are our flank, it looks like. So we're still okay. If they attack us, that'll be to the front and we'll get a defensive bonus. I can also bring this unit in here. And I could attack these spiders, but they're going to get 3 attacks against us if we do. And we're going to take a lot of damage in the process. So what I want to do is I just want to face them and go into defensive mode. And then I can bring my Unicorn Riders in. I'm not sure that I really need to, but what I want to do is just prevent them from running away. So they could run around this way and try to attack my units from the backside here. By putting my Unicorn Riders over here, we will prevent them from potentially moving through this territory. And should have a pretty easy time of it this next round. Alright, so our dwarves barely hang on, but they did a really good job of softening these guys up, which means what we want to do is a small amount of damage as possible to these guys. I can move out of range. So maybe move to here. Yep, there we go. We'll do a little bit less damage, but that's fine. We don't want to kill these units. We want to get as many attacks on them as we can without killing them to make sure that our units are leveling up. So I could potentially kill this thing if I'm not careful. Alright, now I should only get 1 attack, so that won't kill it. That'll give me a little bit of experience on that unit. And then, in an effort to level this guy up, I believe he's the only unit that hasn't had any experience yet, so we'll go ahead and attack with that. Finish it off. Not quite enough to level him up. But we did complete the quest. It was at the expense of our dwarf, but any of our other units would have taken a lot more damage. His poison resistance really allowed him to survive that onslaught more than anything else. And we didn't even really use our Unicorn Rider, which was fine. Just focused more of our experience on the units that are going to be doing most of the fighting. We did get a unit, another High Elf Guard. Union Guard, pretty good. We'll talk about him in a minute. We're going to take the reward. And we've got some decisions to make once again. But the first thing to note here is you can see that the border of this city is now our home colors, even though the units inside of it are not. What this means is that this is a vassal city. And a vassal city is a city that pays you a tribute every turn. So we're currently receiving 4 income and trade and 10 research per turn just for being friendly with this city. Over time, in fact in about 6 turns, we will get an offer to have them completely join our empire. At that time, I can either have them join the empire, and I will take full control of the city, including all of its production and defenses, where right now the AI completely controls all of that. I also have the option of demanding a tribute from them at that time, and what that will do is kind of reset their diplomacy counter with us. They will give us a substantial amount of gold, mana, research, or maybe a small number of units, and then the clock will reset and it'll take another 6 turns or so to fill back up before they will make the offer to join us again. So it's a way to get free resources without having to manage a large empire. You just kind of let these things do their own thing. It's generally better to take over, but if you don't want to micromanage, then releasing cities as vassals is one way to minimize the micromanagement that you have to do. One thing you can do in the game that's pretty helpful, especially on a larger map where you have massive empires, is build up a city to a certain point where you've pretty much maxed it out to the level that you want it to be maxed out to, and then turn it over as a vassal city again, so it's just giving you free resources every turn, but you don't have to micromanage it as much. So that's an option. I think that it's generally better to just keep it in your empire, but it's completely up to you. And there are some minor advantages to being a vassal over being in your empire. The most important of which is you don't have to micromanage it as much. Okay, we did finish the research on the crows, which now gives us the ability to produce scoundrels. Scoundrels are very similar to those brigand units that we saw earlier. They're a pretty good scout unit and a decent ranged unit. Probably not as good as our high elf archers. In fact, definitely not as good as our high elf archers, but they have some advantages that the high elf archers don't. And we'll look at that unit once we've finished researching it. Okay. So where are we going with our army next? I think we were going to head south and try to take this watchtower out. None of these units have any movement left. This High Elf Union Guard can almost get there this turn. I'm going to go ahead and send him down there for now. And the rest of these units, we'll just kind of queue up their movement for the moment. The cavalry unit, I'm tempted to send him out maybe this way and scout this direction. I would send him through the mountains, but elves move really, really poorly through the mountains. So I think we're going to head this direction. I think we'll make better time and better ground that way. And the other thing that we can do now is, since we do have a vassal city, we can cast spells on it. Casting Iron Grip will increase the rate at which a lot of things happen in this city for us, and will provide some benefit to us, but I may wait until we actually take control over it. I am considering Poison Mastery. We have a lot of infantry units currently in our army, as well as an irregular unit, so we would actually take advantage of this pretty heavily at this point. Yeah, 2 infantry units and an irregular unit. We do need to talk a little bit about pikemen and support units a little bit later, but alright, so we did manage to get our temple built, and so the next thing that we want to build might be the War Hall. It could also be the Builder's Hall. There's a number of things we could build. Let's take a look at what we have built. So we've got the laboratory, the storehouse, and the shrine. These are your 3 tier 1 production buildings. One of them gives you food, one of them gives you population, one of them gives you mana. This is the tier 1 infantry building. This gives you 2 new infantry units. We do have wooden walls. So the only thing that we're missing right now is the Builder's Hall. The Builder's Hall is the last tier 1 building that we haven't built, so let's go ahead and get it queued up. And then we'll start working on the tier 2 buildings. Shooting ground and the arena are pretty cool. They provide an extra rank of experience for units of particular type that are built. So this one provides infantry units with a higher rank, and this one provides ranged units or archer units with a higher rank. We're not really focused on building units at the moment, so we're going to ignore that at the time. And High Elf race governance. What this does is, as you build up diplomacy points or morale points with a particular race, you can see race happiness modifiers. As you build up enough of these over time, you'll gain experience towards your race governance, and once you have enough of it, you can unlock one of these 2 effects. One effect is primarily a military unit upgrade. The other one is a production building or something of that nature type upgrade. So you can see what we could do is a shooting ground in a High Elf city will provide 50 additional population growth per turn. Or this one, High Elf military patron or High Elf patron military shooting grounds give High Elf longbowmen and High Elf hunters +1 range damage. One of these effects is a little bit more useful than the other in the early game, especially. The other one is more useful in the mid to late game and is a little bit more persistent. So this effect, the extra population, does eventually kind of cap out. Cities do have a maximum size, and once they reach that size, gaining extra population really has no effect. So that it's nice in that it can allow you to expand your cities more quickly. In fact, significantly faster in the early game, but maybe not fast enough to really be warranted. It really just depends on your situation and whether you already have a shooting grounds down or not by the time you get this unlocked. We currently don't have a shooting ground. We could build it really quickly, actually, and then take advantage of that extra growth to try to get to our gold mine a little bit quicker. I'm trying to think. Let's close this out for just a second and think about how many more tiles are we going to be able to grab over the course of the game here. A city's maximum size, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's something like 8 or 9 tiles. Even at 9 tiles, I just don't know. We might be able to get this. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we might be able to get all the way out to that. That fire node would give us a little bit of extra. This water node might actually get grabbed, so we might actually grab 2 more nodes. I don't think it's worth it though. I would rather have the damage on our archers. Alright, we can go ahead and move our units again. I already kind of know where I'm moving this guy. Okay, so this is an interesting tile. This is a tile that provides haste berries. What this does is when a unit moves onto them or an army moves onto them, they will consume all the berries and they will completely regenerate their movement points for the turn. So hitting this at the right time in a turn can basically give your units the ability to move twice in a single turn. It does consume the berries and it takes multiple turns before they regenerate and can be used again. and it can only be used by a single stack of armies. So if 1 unit's in the stack, they will consume all the berries. If 6 units are in the stack, they will consume all the berries. It doesn't really matter one way or the other. But that's an important thing to note. What we want to do with this army is go ahead and move it as far down the road as we can. And then what I want to do with this unit is let's go ahead and move it down here and scout. And we're actually going to replace the dwarf unit with this unit temporarily. I would prefer to have the dwarf unit in this army, but because he's so beat up and because it's going to take so many turns for him to heal, what I'm going to do is next turn I'm going to drop him off in this city, and we're going to meet up down here with this unit and hopefully be able to take on this tower with a fresh stack of 6 fully healed units. That being said, I think this is maybe a good place to go ahead and end this second video for today. I know the first one went a little longer, and we'll probably do a couple more of these in the series before I go ahead and end this series, unless people are really interested in watching me play it more. I'm finding that a lot of the stuff that I've had on my channel for the last couple of weeks, people are not that interested in watching, so I'm just going to kind of play whatever I feel. I know the Total War series definitely kind of sort of fell off in terms of how many people were watching it, and I don't blame them. Total War, especially with the Mortal Empires, can be a little tedious to watch, especially with the length of the turn timers. There's not a lot of action many times. It's kind of a slow, grindy game. But I will continue the Endless Legends series that might be coming up later today or tomorrow, and we'll do a little bit more Age of Wonders, and maybe some Diluvian, but we'll see. Whatever I have time for and whatever I'm feeling energized to play. So until next time, this has been The Nose Plays, and you guys have a great day.